I mean, those challenges that I spoke about, the racial profiling, sometimes they get to you, right? Like you're away from your family and you need to feel a certain way and you've got this pandemic going on. And then someone just comes and looks at you like, okay, but you're black. And
Yeah.
I've been going back and forth with recruiters, right? They apply for a job, they get back to me. The first sentence I write to them, but I'm black. Do I qualify?
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Melanated Files. My name is Ranzo, right? This is the Black Experience Stories TV, right? If you have not yet subscribed, please consider doing so and like this video if you like it. Today we're joined by Chibli. He's resided in Malaysia and we're going to get into his story right now. Chibli, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So tell us quickly, just give us an introduction about yourself.
Oh, I'm Zambian, currently residing in Malaysia. I've been here for about 2 years and almost relocating back to my country in the next month or so.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been quite a good experience here in Malaysia.
All right. So what brought you to Malaysia?
So basically, I was working in IT in my country. I'd worked for about 10 years in IT, and then I just sort of pressed the reset button and decided, let me see where I can go in the world and try to just, restart my life. So I picked on Malaysia for a number of reasons, which I'll get into later on. So that's my brief story.
Well, we want to know why. So tell me, why Malaysia?
First off, I think Malaysia in Southeast Asia is one of the most metropolitan countries in this part of the world. English is widely spoken. The culture is quite integrated with different types of ethnicities. You've got Malays, you've got the Indians, you've got the Chinese, and most of them speak good English. So I think that's the main reason I picked Malaysia. Plus, I'd already been here. I came here first in 2014, and my old man had been here twice already. So that was good encouragement for me to come here.
So, like, what was the vehicle that took you to Malaysia? Did you get a job? Was it like an extended vacation? Are you working remotely? Like, what brought you to Malaysia? What do you do in Malaysia, I should say?
Okay, so first thing is, because I'd prior to this, I'd worked in IT, as I mentioned. So it was for me like, I need to upskill myself. So I came here for graduate school. So I
Okay.
actually completed my graduate school in data science, and I'm most likely going to do a PhD soon, most likely this year, probably in Europe, not in Asia this time. So that was my goal. Like, okay, I need to go to a country. First off, is graduate school is quite short. I need to pick on a country that's good English facilities. You learn in English. So Malaysia kind of stood out.
What do you like the most about Malaysia? I was there once. That's it.
Okay.
Right. And it
Which part?
wasn't for very
KL?
long. It wasn't for very long. So I'm not really. I think I was in Kuala Lumpur. It was
Kuala
very very
Lumpur.
short.
Okay.
Yeah, very short trip. So I never really got a real taste for Malaysia. But what can you tell us about it? What do you like the most, and what do you like the least about Malaysia?
Okay, one thing I like is that, because of the metropolitan state of Malaysia, it's like you find everyone from everywhere. So you kind of don't feel out of place. People are used to seeing Black people, other people from different parts of the world, the Arab
Yeah.
people and whatnot. So you don't really feel out of place. So that's the first thing. People are friendly, they're honest, they're kind, and you really don't even feel homesick for the
Oh
large part
wow.
of your stay here. So that was a good thing for me. So yeah, so those are the main things that I would say I love about Malaysia. And if it comes to the least, I would say I'm not really into spicy foods. So that's
Okay.
something I'm not really gotten used to in the past 2 years. And other things are just, you're a foreigner, right? This is not your country. So you kind of feel sometimes out of place. A few instances here and there, but I wouldn't say the country's overall racist or anything like that. They're quite generous and very humble and kind to foreigners. Asians love to save face, right? So they respect how they treat other people because it reflects back on them. And there are all sorts of religions. There's Buddhism. There's Islam. Malaysia is an Islam country, and I'm from a Christian country, so I'm basically just Christian through and through, right? So I find people from the Muslim faith quite friendly. I've got most of my friends are Muslim, so
Okay.
for me it's not a big deal. So yeah, so that's what I would say. That's why I would say I love Malaysia.
Where do you live in Malaysia, by the way?
Selangor, just within Kuala Lumpur.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So, and you're saying it's a metropolitan, and there's a lot of people, so you don't feel homesick. Then, but you said at the same time there are maybe sprinklings, let's just say, of
Okay.
maybe discrimination or
Yes, I would
prejudice.
say
Like, what would you say?
I think that's in two parts, right? Like the other day, we went to the mall and trying to get PlayStation 4 games for my friends, and reached this Chinese store, and this woman just like we asked the price, like how much is this NBA 2021, and she looked at us quite awkwardly, paused for a bit, gave us the price, which was obviously inflated, and then just said goodbye. Like upon saying the price of the of the item, and she said just goodbye, like I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear from you and stuff. So that was kind of a rude shock awakening, and that's the
Mm,
only thing that I've faced here, like something which is very uncomfortable in the past 2 years
mhm.
that stands out, and
And
that's as racist.
and she's like a foreigner, so she's
No,
not
no,
Malay.
no,
She's like
she's like Chinese Malay. I mean, thing
okay,
is, in Malaysia, everyone describes themselves by race. So which is
okay,
quite uncomfortable to me. Like you ask a Malaysian, like, okay, who are you? Are you from Malaysia? Yes, I'm Chinese Malay. I'm Chinese or Indian Malay or I'm Malay. I'm like, I need to know, are you Malaysian or not? Don't describe your race, don't describe your ethnicity, like
mhm,
what are you? So those are a few differences I find. Like people are so grounded on their racial and ethnic roots in terms of personal description. So that's a bit
okay.
uncomfortable for me. Yeah.
Okay, so how was your experience in school, right? So you were studying, like, how was that environment?
Environment, of course, you find lots of culture shock, right? Like I'm a mature student, and my fellow students are just like straight from undergrad, and they go into a master's. So in terms of relations, it was kind of different. But with most of the people I found, like we've got Bangladeshis, you've got Pakistanis, and a few people from Africa. I've got a friend from Kenya, and even my own country. I found someone in my cohorts within my country. So it was
Okay,
quite. It was a good experience. Could have been better, but it was good. I can't complain. It was rather fascinating.
okay. So how is the educational system in Malaysia versus back in Zambia? Like, any differences that are noteworthy?
Yeah, I would say in terms of technology, like my course is part and part technology, right? So facilities here are way more advanced than not only in Zambia, like most African countries. Okay, I would
Okay.
say South Africa ranks quite high in that. They're quite good in technology subjects and whatnot. But in Malaysia, facilities are fantastic at the university I was, and I was lucky to pick a school which is the most metropolitan school in Southeast Asia. Okay, it never gets
Mm,
as better as this. You find more than three-quarters of the students come from overseas. So for
okay.
me, that was a good thing. Like, okay, I need to be in a school that feels, international, and, I can relate to other people. Plus, I've done a bit of traveling myself, so I can relate with other people. Like, okay, they come from the Middle East. Okay, I know this and that about their culture and stuff. Um, in terms of my Muslim friends, I know a few phrases in Arabic, so that was a good thing for me to just, re-energize myself.
Okay. What about the cost of living and quality of life in Malaysia?
Cost of living in Malaysia is, I would say, relatively cheaper than if I had to compare back home in my country. It's way cheaper in Malaysia. Even like rentals, accommodation, food, and whatnot, it's way cheaper. Very, very much cheaper. It's like between 35 to 40% cheaper. Food
Okay.
is, food in Southeast Asia is a steal. It's always cheap, right? Street food, just that we've got this situation happening. We can't really go out and buy street food, but street
Mhm.
food is the bomb. It's always there, cheap and whatnot. So those are the
Okay.
few things that I would say I love about it.
So what's the COVID situation like in Malaysia right now? What are some of the restrictions?
Now it's gotten a bit worse. I think just starting into 2021, things got a little strict. We've got a new CMCO. I think it will last until into the next 10 days, until the 18th. It's quite
What's
strict. You
a
can't go
CMCO?
out.
You said sorry, you said a CMCO. What's that?
It's a lockdown. It's a lockdown, a government
That's what they
lockdown
call it. That's the term.
restriction. Yeah, that's the term they call it. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
it's a government restriction. We're not allowed to gather in groups. We're not allowed to go out anywhere necessarily. We're not allowed to be just in a bunch of three or more people. Even in Grab, you'd be caught in traffic jam, and police eventually will come and arrest you, and you pay something equivalent to about $200, I think. That's the
Okay, wow.
charge. So you're not really allowed to do anything outside, the government restrictions. I mean, which is a good thing. They're trying to, avoid the spread of the pandemic here. So yeah, I would say that. And then I
Mhm.
think adding on that, I would say, like, I had a friend of mine who recently went back to Nairobi, and he was racially profiled. Like, he was in a Grab, and this guy was just stopped by the police because he's black. Literally just
Wow.
that.
Wait. So the Grab driver
Mhm.
drove him to the police station because he was black?
No, no. It was a road, road checkup. Okay.
Hmm.
Most cars were passing, but this policeman actually saw that this person was black, and they stopped his car, and he was told to remove everything from his pockets, put his hands behind his back, more like an arrest, right?
Wow.
So the guy was traumatized, and he ended up going back to Kenya. And I mean, it's just one of those things that happens, but it's rather shocking if you see it in real life. I find most people here, like, they're very super friendly, right? But you find those instances of racial profiling or being stereotyped by others and stuff like that. No, oh, you come from Africa, you've got this and that. Like, come on, I think you need to educate yourself on what Africa is. It's quite diverse. It's
Hmm.
way bigger and better than you think it is. It's not what you see on the media, you see. But I, as a person, can only represent where I come from by what I do, right? I'm not
Yeah.
representing the whole race or the whole continent. I'm my own person, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, such is life, right? C'est la vie.
What would you say is a general attitude towards black people in Malaysia? What would you say?
Okay, I would say it's in two parts, right? We've got I'm not going to name a country, but we've got a West African country that has really tarnished the name of black people here, especially Africans, right? So people
Okay.
actually come at you in that respect, like, okay, we know you from this angle. So lots of ignorance, lots of racial profiling, but I would say that's mainly from their experiences here, and I really can't blame them, right? Like, this is how they know other black people, right? So that's it. That's in the first part. Then the other part, people are curious. They want to know, where you come from, your food, your culture. They want to learn about you. They basically just want to have that, international spread of friendship, understand the world better through you. So
Okay.
that's the other thing. So that's according to some of my friends. I
Hmm.
find them being more attractive to me in a way that they're trying to get to know me, get to know my culture, what I've done in my life, and understand a different perspective of life. Because I mean, like, in all countries, right? You've got people who always bash their own countries, right? So you've got Malaysians saying, "Nah, these people Malaysian," you've got that kind of mentality, right? But when they get to see someone else, they get to see life from a different perspective.
Hmm.
And even me, I think that's one thing I appreciate as well. Back in my country, I try to meet foreigners and, try to, be friendly with them and show them a part of Zambia that they probably wouldn't see. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. So would you advise other black people to visit or move to Malaysia?
Moving is another thing. I think if you've got an opportunity here, I'll get into that later. You can move here. Standards of living are quite way cheaper than most African countries. Malaysia is a developing country. I think it should be a developed country in the next 2, 3 years or so.
Okay.
So I would say if you want to move here, you can. It's a beautiful place, right? But then again, you need to understand the policies. Okay, you need to understand where these people are coming from, and you need to understand the employment laws. There's no anti-discrimination law in the employment. They would categorically put they want someone who's Chinese, they want someone who's not foreigner, things that wouldn't kick in my country. Like, if a company had to put, we don't want anyone who's not from this country, or we want someone from this tribe, they would be sued, and that company will probably be on suspension or something. But here
Hmm.
it flies. It flies. If they want someone who's Indian, they will literally just put, we want someone who can speak Hindi. And I mean, that's been my experience. The employment situation is, it's racist. I'm not going to cover it up or sugarcoat it. It's rather racist. So
Wow.
yeah, that's
So
my bad experience in terms of being employed here.
So have you been fortunate enough to become employed?
No, not really. I've had a few interviews, but these have been half baked, right? Like you
Mhm.
always feel like they're just trying to cover numbers or they're not really serious about it. And I mean, that's that. I mean, not to say that there are no black people who are employed here, there are, but the majority of them are like living in sketchy situations, right? You can see the
Okay.
way someone dresses up. It's a bit unfortunate, right?
Okay.
Whether someone, I'm not sure if they're educated or not. I can't vouch for them in that respect, but
Mhm.
um, I mean, such is the employment status here. It's racially based, right? Even within
Wow.
Malaysia itself, you find that there are papers, the articles that I've read that present data that the preferred race of employment is the Chinese, right? So no matter how you're educated, you get your master's degree, you get your PhD, there's one qualification you can't change, and that's your race. And that's quite
Wow.
unfortunate. Like that to me, that's touching. Like probably that's the main reason I'm trying to move out of Malaysia. But that's the sad thing. But
Okay.
overall, I would say people in Malaysia are super kind, they're friendly. You will not feel out of place. I mean, those challenges that I spoke about, the racial profiling, sometimes they get to you, right? Like you're away from your family and you need to feel a certain way, and you've got this pandemic going on, and then someone just comes and looks at you like, okay, but you're black. And
Yeah.
I've been going back and forth with recruiters, right? They apply for a job, they get back to me. The first sentence I write to them, but I'm black. Do I qualify? I mean, sometimes you get paranoid, like,
Yeah.
and you get that, what do they call that? It's imposter syndrome, right? You're
Mm.
qualified, but then again, you're thinking, people don't accept you for what you have because of who you are. I mean, that's something you can't change, right? I can't
Yeah.
change my race, right? I can't
Yeah.
change my
And you don't
skin.
want to do that either.
Exactly. And you find that even these big companies, Standard Chartered, Barclays, on their employment, you're filling in application forms. They want to know who your parents are, what they've done in life, their
Wow.
social standings, your race, any other races. I mean, it's like racial profiling to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Like there's no antique, I do not wish to declare my gender, my race, my age. There's nothing like that. It's compulsory. So they
Wow.
are hiring you on racial grounds. That's just one thing, right? It's
Hmm.
really uncomfortable for me. So I think even like raising out before this, because I had dated a Malaysian, right? I
Hmm.
thought of maybe I would consider, living here and starting my own family. But I think because of those experiences that I've had, no, I think it would be too traumatic. It's like teaching your
Hmm.
son who's like 10 years old, like, son, when you get stopped by the police, make sure your hands are behind your back. You don't try to pull out your wallet. You don't, if you're driving a car, you make sure you stop. You don't do anything, random, or you'll be
Yeah.
shot. That's
Yeah.
hard to explain, right?
Indeed.
It's really
Indeed.
hard. So I think on that, I think Malaysians still have a lot to improve on in terms of Africa to Asian relationships. They've got a long way, I think. I think part because they're also not traveled. I mean,
Hmm.
they're just coming into, being a developed country. So most of them are so ignorant about Africans. They think we're all West Africans because that's what they've known, right? They
Okay.
don't really understand the dynamics and complexities within the African societies. Like I come from a Bantu speaking people, right? You know that
Hmm.
term Ubuntu?
Hmm. Yes.
Ubuntu means, like, for me, if I say Umuntu in Bemba, that's my dialect, right? If I say Umuntu, I mean a person of color. I
Okay.
can't extend that to an Asian. I can't extend that to a white person. I can't extend that to another. Only a person of color who's black. So
Hmm.
being Umuntu or being Ubuntu mean extend humanity to another person. That level of compassion and being family, you extend it to another person. Now Mandela kind of globalized that and made it into some sort of trend.
Hmm.
Not Mandela, Desmond Tutu.
Okay.
He's the one who coined, no, being Ubuntu is this and that, but that's just the extension of being African, right? Like you don't want other people to feel out of place because of who they are. Okay, we've got over 2,000 different ethnicities in Africa, over 2,000 languages as
Wow.
well. So
Hmm.
it's so diverse. So even in my country, you move 100 k's left, right, or wherever, you find a different language, and I feel like I'm in a different place. Like I don't know that language. Like what do you mean? right? That's how complex it is. But at the end of the day, despite our complexities, we still come together and we're still one people, right? Um, I'll send you, I think in the email, I'll send you a song, and that was released in December. It's called My Zambia. Okay, check it out on YouTube. It's
Mhm.
something that embraces, being Zambian and being African and just being accommodative to other people despite being different. We're one, right? And it's something that I think the world, like, when I was traveling, right, I had this experience that, I thought that, people accept me for who I am and whatnot, but that's not exactly the thing. It's not the
Yeah.
case. You'd be
Mhm.
racially profiled in certain places, you'd be looked at. Like, I would give an example in Vietnam. By then I was dating a girl from South Africa. So we went into this restaurant, right? Second time in Vietnam, I went with her, just,
Yeah.
vacation, traveling, and fun. So I went into this restaurant, we were eating, and, these young people just started laughing at us.
Wow.
Like, have you ever gotten that? Like, you just been laughed at?
I've heard laughter around me, but I'm not sure if they were laughing at me.
Yeah,
But
but
you never know.
exactly. But then I look at it like, okay, even in my country, you find people laughing at Chinese people, right? They call them
Mm.
names, not because they're racist, but because they're different, right? So they single
Mhm.
them out in that respect. I mean, that's not to say I'm trying to defend ignorance. It's not, but it's not racist. Like, they don't want to do any harm to you, okay? But then again, you find that I actually found a writing on in Vietnam with the
Mhm.
N word and graffiti. The N word in graffiti in Vietnam, in Hanoi. I was
Mhm.
like, wow, how did this come here? And I was thinking, this is probably a Western person who did this,
Mm.
because Vietnamese are really, they're super people. They're really friendly,
Okay.
especially again with foreigners.
Okay. So I'm listening to what you're saying, right? And I know it's a balance because most countries have like pros and cons. Every country actually has pros and cons,
Exactly.
right? And
Yes.
it seems like, well, what would you say? Would you say the negatives outweigh the positives? Right? Because I
No,
under okay.
no, not really. It's not really balanced in that way. I think the positives are more, right? You find, a few things that you remember about the country are probably even just the bad things, right? But that's just like one or two instances. As I said, in terms of being racially profiled, my only experience has been that one at the mall and whatnot. So I wouldn't say it's a bad place to live in. I mean, there are other places that are worse than this, right?
Mhm.
Other places which are like Southeast Asia is, some countries are just really more autonomous, right? Like only 1% is like foreigner and stuff. Like, prior to this, I'd been to Vietnam for a number of times, right? And
Mhm.
I find Vietnam, like Vietnamese don't, most of them don't speak English, but they're super kind. They're super inquisitive. And I first went to Vietnam like 2016 and I returned back in 2018. And I still kept my same friend of my friends. And it was super nice, right? Like, these guys are very friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
But
been
in
there. It's
terms,
true. Mhm.
exactly, but in terms of English speaking, I think they fall short. Like, you be speaking and you Google Translate, things like that. But overall, I would say, I mean, that's what attracted me to Southeast Asia. The people are kind, right?
Mhm.
They're super nice. Even back home, I met some people from the Philippines, and we had a ball. And I mean, that's one thing I really love about Southeast Asia. Plus, I think if a black person is going to travel in the world, I would say I would be biased towards Southeast Asia because, I mean, there are people of color, right? And you're a person of color. Whichever part of the world you go to, as long as you're a minority, you're going to feel a certain level of being out of place. That's just a fact, right? It's not your
Mhm.
country, it's not your land, right? But now, having said that, Southeast Asia is more relaxed in that respect. They're more friendly, they're more hospitable. I wouldn't say anything bad about them except my own biased experiences, but that's what I would say. They're really good, great people.
Yeah, I think we can't escape just different experiences, right? Because as you said, we are the foreigners, we're the visitors, right? So and
Exactly. Yeah.
especially when the populace of that, the percentage of foreigners is very low, there will be certain things that we will face, right? And hopefully in time it will improve. But there's no perfect country. But I gotta say that maybe the
Mhm.
the perception I'm getting from you regarding Malaysia is a little bit I
Mhm.
I'm a bit nervous about it because some of the things that you've said, I remember where was I? think I was leaving Malaysia. I think I was coming to back to Tokyo.
Okay.
And so there was a lineup. So I'm not really sure how the race relations is when it comes on to like black people. Because when I was leaving, there was a lineup of people that were checking like documents, right, and stuff. I'm like, okay. It seems like it was an extra step. It was an extra step because usually that doesn't happen, right? So
Okay.
there a queue of people, and they were looking at my because I have like a residence card for Japan and stuff, and they're looking at my Japanese residence card, and they're just looking at it like with some stuff to see if it's real. And even when I came into Malaysia, they were inspecting my thing more than usual, looking if it's real. I'm just like, okay, I don't understand why you guys be using all these magnifying thing. I'm like, okay, that's odd. And then the guy's like, well, how do you say this in Japanese? I'm like, well, if I say, are you gonna understand it anyways? So of course I answer this question, but I'm just like, it's almost like for some reason, I guess if I don't know if they had like experiences with people with like fake documents or something, but they were just looking at my stuff like as if they think it's fake. So
Yeah,
I don't know,
Ranzo,
like,
I'll need to give you some homework. You research on that and you'll find a particular country that's got a bad reputation in Malaysia. So
okay,
I think everyone
that's
else
why.
assumes that, right? Like they think we're into drugs and, we're criminals, we fake documents. That's
Mhm,
kind of the onset, right? Like, because they've got so many experiences that come from that angle, right? Especially
mhm.
from, as I said, a certain West African country. I'm not gonna name it, right? It's all over the internet. You do your homework on that. But I mean, you can't blame them because this is what they know of us, right? And by us, I just mean people, dark-skinned people, black people, and whatnot, right? Like that shouldn't make you feel out of place. They're just trying to go that extra mile into protecting their country as well. So
Yeah,
it's twofold. You understand, you feel uncomfortable, quite okay, right? But I think for the greater good, I would say it's fine. Let them do what they're doing. But it's racial profiling at the end of the day. We can't run away from that, right?
mm.
So it's
Hopefully
that
one day. Hopefully
exactly.
one day. It might be naive thinking, but hopefully we the world improves. But I understand, right? They have a reason because from what you're saying, there's a certain segment of society that engages in certain activities, and as a result of that, they feel like they need to implement additional measures, right, to just check stuff. So I get it, but when you fall prey to that, it can become annoying because
And
when like going in and coming out, it's like I'm like, okay, like the guy saw me in the line. I was the only black guy in the line entering Malaysia. And I could
okay,
see that the immigration officer was watching me for a while. He's dealing with someone else, and then he's looking at me every 2 seconds. He looked up at me. I'm like, okay,
wow,
this guy's looking at me too much. Something is gonna happen once I reach the front. And when I reached up to the front, like, yes, he looked at my stuff and he checked and he scanned and put it under this light and all these things, flipped through my passport and all this stuff. I'm like, okay. I felt
wow,
a bit insulted because I'm just like, in my mind, I was like, I was gonna say something to the guy, but I'm like, you know what? He has a power right now. I should just remain calm, right? Let him just do whatever, get my passport back, and I'm on my way. Because if I engaged
Exactly.
him, then he would have delayed me and whatever. So I was a bit annoyed. I was because it took a minute looking at all my stuff, and I'm just like, okay, bro. I've never experienced that ever in all the countries
Wow.
I've traveled to. So I feel like there is something in Malaysia, and as you said, maybe other people because of what the precedents pretty much that has been set. That's why I had to go through that, right? But hey,
Exactly.
it's a hey, as you said, um, generally speaking, or you have a positive experience. You have some isolated instances where some people are racist, right? You
Yeah.
experience some racial profiling, but when you look weigh in the balance your experience, the pros outweigh the cons, in your opinion.
Certainly, yes. I think I love Malaysians. I'm comfortable with Malaysians, right? They're super friendly.
Mhm.
They make you feel a certain way of, just feeling not out of place. And that's priceless to me, right? Like I'm
Okay.
9,000 kilometers away from my home country. We've been all isolated during this pandemic. And the last thing that you need to do is, being, having that feeling of, having, feeling like a foreigner. So
Okay.
that's something that comes and goes, but overall, I think I feel really comfortable here.
Okay, so when what you said with Malaysia, it sounds like the common people or the normal regular citizen or citizens are okay, but it's people that are in positions of power who seem to be more prejudiced and racist, right? Like maybe some police officers, maybe some employers.
Exactly, because even, the three ethnicities here, Indians, Malay, and Chinese, they're all different. The Chinese are at the top of the food chain. They control this place. They are the boss, they are the king, right? And
Okay,
you've got the Indians and Malays. Those are at the bottom. So in terms of employment, first qualification you need to have is being Chinese.
wow.
Okay? Even if the role does not require you to speak Chinese or Cantonese or Mandarin, they'll still need you to be that particular ethnic group. And then you've got the government that put in a law, I think in August last year. Is it last year? No, the other year, August. They
Mhm.
literally just said, we do not want to employ foreigners. We want to employ the locals because of the COVID situation. And I'm like, I come to Malaysia with my life savings. I invest in this country tens of thousands of dollars, and then you expect me to just go back to my country, don't want to employ me? I mean,
Mhm.
how's that fair? It's not fair, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's
Mhm.
like written in the law, like they do not discriminate, they don't, you know, charge people for being discriminatory. Like there's a particular policy, it's ratified by about 162 countries against
Mhm.
racial discrimination on employment. Malaysia is not one of them.
Okay.
So that tells you the story.
Wow. Yeah,
But it's a good country.
I gotta say, it's like when you said the but,
Mhm.
I got it, the way it's coming across to me is like I'm like I don't know, I'm not too sure about Malaysia. I'm like
I
some
mean,
of these things seems, but the thing is, it depends on your tolerance level, I guess. It depends on because some people it might be okay, like it might not be a deal breaker for some people, and for others it might be a deal breaker, right? So it really depends on like what you can really put up with.
but Ranzo, let me ask you this. Do you think you can go anywhere else in the world that you're a minority and feel super comfortable?
No,
Like,
I don't. No, I don't think so. No, 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 no. Not even. For instance, in Japan as well, like there is sometimes a reminded that you're an outsider, right? So it's not something that you could say. You can't escape it. First of all, you can't. You can't escape it, right? But it depends. I think what people search for sometimes, and it might be something that I can't say if it's good or not because we can't control our external environment too much, right? We can usually control our internal environment, right?
yes.
And so we can do what we can do here, but I think people try to find somewhere where they find or experience as little discrimination or racism as possible. So they're looking for a country like, okay, this one, okay. And some people might say, well, I can put up with discrimination based on this, but I can't put up with it if they're not going to employ me, right? Someone might say, well, if someone stare at me all the time, I don't care about that as long as they're not trying to stop my progression, whether it's my application to university or if they're not giving me a job, things like that might be deal breakers, right? Or if someone is like, well, I can't find someone to date because they don't date black people, like
That,
someone might
and
not
that's
value that.
and that's a big thing here. Because of the experience that they have, I'm not even trying to defend them, right? It's highly racist. Like
Mhm.
as a black person, if you're trying to get a date who's Chinese or Malay, its chances are like
Next to impossible.
it's wild. It's like flying to the moon.
Wow. And that's challenging.
I mean, I consider myself quite proactive, right? I mean, I'm cultured, I'm educated,
Yeah.
but despite all those things, right? Like here, being white is king. If you're white, you get women from everywhere. But if you're
Okay.
black, it's just something that's frowned upon, right? Do you know that Southeast Asia, I mean, me being here and being black, it's nothing new. We had the natives of Malaysia are black. Did you know
Okay.
that?
Wait, when you say
The
black,
natives
as
of
in they look like
Indonesia
us?
are black. You do
Okay.
this. You Google black people in Indonesia or natives of Malaysia. You
Hmm.
see black people with woolly hair, dark
Okay.
skin. You find these. They're still here. Even in Malaysia, in the rural areas, you find black people, not straight from Africa,
Okay.
but they've been here for thousands of years. Okay, so it's nothing new being here. Okay.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that you spoke about, feeling out of place and stuff, I'd mentioned I wanted to go to South Africa before this, right?
Yeah.
By then, my woman is South African, Lesotho, right? It's
Mm.
an enclave in South Africa. So thing is, I really contemplated on moving to South Africa, and my parents were really against that idea. Because what? Xenophobia, right? I'm black and they are black, but I still get treated a certain way, and my
Yeah.
life would be in danger because of that. I
Mm.
mean, that's just within Africa, we've got all these dynamics, right? In Asia, I think in terms of being they're xenophobic or racist and stuff, it doesn't get to a place where it turns into murder. In South
Mm.
Africa, yes, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
Really,
Wow.
I'm really terrified of South Africa. So it's those things, and the other thing is, us trying to always push Africans to move abroad, live abroad, and stuff. We need to really balance this negative aspect. We don't need
Mm.
to, overwhelm them with the beauty of Southeast Asia and stuff. There are all these things that they need to watch out for. They need to educate themselves on, how to carry out themselves. What to expect, the racial profiling that's expected. All these things really need to be balanced out.
Yes.
Like it's a good thing. Like I would imagine if I had a kid who's Blasian, Black Asian,
Mhm.
and me living here, it would be a bit crazy. People will be looking at us like, okay, in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Kuala Lumpur is metropolitan, as I said. I find lots of mixed kids, Asians and blacks or Chinese, Indians. I love those kids. I wouldn't lie to you. I love them, right?
Mhm.
But certain people don't look at it in the way that I do. They
Okay.
look at it in a frown. Even me marrying a Chinese girl or an Indian girl, it would be a nightmare. We literally have to elope.
Wow.
That's just a thing. So
And then
the
run
way,
away.
yeah, the way we look at things, right? For me, I'm biased towards if I find someone who's different from me in my country, I would want to know more about them. You get it, right? And at
Mhm.
the end of it, I would brag like, I've got a friend who's from Slovenia or Lufthansa or whatever, right? I know a bit of their culture and stuff. That's something I hold value in, right? But other people look at it in a rather disgusting, distasteful way. Like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to know him. He's black. He's Asian. And that's the dynamics of the human race.
Yeah.
It's so complex, but at the end of the day, I think we just need to be human to ourselves and to others.
Quickly walk us through the process of securing a student visa in Malaysia. Like, for instance, if someone wanted to, become a student, like, could you walk us through that process?
Okay, first off, you have to look at the universities. If you don't know Malay, because some universities require you to know Malay, in which case you'd be here for a few years and you need to learn the language. But look for metropolitan schools within Malaysia. I think it's quite easy, okay? Depending on where you're coming from and what sort of background that you have. If you're going into graduate school, you need to have certain requirements for your undergrad. If you're going into your undergrad, of course, English is widely spoken. So if you choose a university which teaches in English, which are like plus 70% of the universities here teach in English. So it's quite easy. I think when I was applying for Malaysian universities, I applied to Taiwan, India, South Africa. I was really keen on living in South Africa for a bit. Malaysia, I think, just responded quickly. Like within a week, they got back to
Okay.
me, send us your details, your documents. And then within a month, I'd gotten my visa and I came here. It's quite easy. It's very, very
So,
easy.
so would you say the tuition fee is expensive?
It's more expensive than other Southeast Asian countries. Granted, the levels of education are slightly higher than other Southeast Asian countries,
Mhm.
but I think it's affordable. It's way cheaper than the US, way cheaper than Europe, way cheaper
Okay.
than some other African countries, but I would say it's about average. It's not
Okay.
so expensive.
So, do you speak the language there?
No, unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to learn the local dialects. Part because my master's program was quite intense, right? You're learning,
Mhm.
you have to do your thesis, and it was so intense. But I'm trying to pick up a few words here and there, so I think I'll learn in the next few weeks when I have got a bit more time. Apart from, of course, postgraduate applications.
Okay. So wait. So you're applying for your PhD, a PhD program in Malaysia as well. You're considering that?
No,
Okay.
I'm literally just considering the Netherlands or Norway, Sweden, or England even. I'm looking at just artificial intelligence. I mean, that's my background, machine learning, artificial intelligence,
Okay.
autonomous vehicles. That's something I'm trying to get into. And I think in the STEMs, we don't have much Black people representing that field. Just in science, right?
Yeah.
Science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. We don't have people of color representing that. So that's something I will try to propel in the future, especially once I'm done with my doctorate studies. I'll
Mhm.
try to see how I can encourage the youth to get into the STEMs and not only get their advanced degrees, but get their PhDs. And I mean, it's a beautiful thing to be educated.
So tell me though, like, so after your PhD, what do you want to do?
Okay, I've ruled out academia because I don't want to be a professor or a lecturer
Okay.
or working in the academic fraternity. That's just not me, right? It's not my calling. So
Okay.
one is I think I would want to do my own business. Like everyone is going autonomous, right? So that's
Yeah.
something I'm looking at, and looking at sustainability. How can we propel, green mobility in smart cities, not only in the Western world, but even in Africa, right? We need to
Mhm.
have. First off, electricity is a big thing in Africa, so we need to sort that out. We have EVs, electric cars, and then it's largely personal, right? Southern Africa will be the first and will be the heavily affected by climate change.
Okay.
So that's something I'm looking at. Even in my country, you see the climatic conditions have changed. In the past decade, the rain pattern, weather patterns have drastically changed in a way that you can actually tell that, okay, this place was better than it was. You find even the Victoria Falls, it's a landmark which is like something that people look forward to during the holidays to go travel. Sometimes you find the water is quite low and the falls
Okay.
is not even there. So I mean,
Okay.
all those things are something that's propelling me to have that sustainability outlook and apply technology and see how we can move from there.
What's your philosophy personally? Like, what's the best life advice you've received as an individual?
Okay, I would say it's in two parts, right? So I think the first part would be like you're never educated until you travel, right? So get that
Mm.
exposure, learn different cultures, such things you can't learn from YouTube, you can't learn from the internet, you can't learn from movies. Like you get to travel, right? People have got misconceptions about Africa. Africans have got misconceptions about Asia and the Western world. It's like unless they travel, they'll never know, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's one thing. Like uh 2016, I found myself traveling to Vietnam. Why? It was only that, thirst for understanding the Vietnamese culture. And for me, I think that was the best time of my life. I would not lie to you. Booked the ticket solo, went there for 3 weeks. I came back a new person. I was like, okay, I need to do this again.
Wow.
And after that, I'd been traveling to all parts. Egypt, I'd been to other parts of Africa, and that's just something that I take really a strong view on. Like you travel the world, you learn other cultures, meet new people. It's an open world, right? I mean, despite the current situation, like for
Mhm.
me, education is that. It's about traveling.
Tell us some things about Zambia then. Introduce us to Zambia.
Zambia would say, okay, let me start from a cliche point. You've watched the Black Panther, right? You've watched that fight at the falls,
Mhm.
and that falls is the Victoria Falls in my country. It's the
Mm.
largest waterfall landmark in the world, right? So
Nice.
Zambia is a country with about 17 million people, with about 72 tribes and about 74 districts. It's quite diverse in terms of language and dialects and culture and differences amongst our people, but we've been independent since 1964 from the Brits, and we've never faced any war. But then again, you look at media, right? It just shows Africa as, impoverished, war, and, people are struggling, are suffering, are dying. But it's all different in my country and in most parts of Africa, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I would say. But I would just try to implore, people from my country and other African people, just people of color, to just travel the world, see the world, and see how we can relate with other people from different ethnicities or racial groups. It's a beautiful thing. But then again, in my country, we've got lots of Asians. Of course, we've got Indians who've been living in my country for hundreds of years, right? They're more Zambian than I am. That's what I would say. So in terms of race, I think everything is covered in my country. We've got Caucasians, we've got everyone from everywhere.
Mm.
So it's quite metropolitan. It's getting more metropolitan. So that's what I would say.
Where can people find you online?
Online, I'm in LinkedIn. Apparently, I'm not big on social media, right? Like you can find me on LinkedIn, Chibili Mugala. You can find me on Twitter, Chibili. I spell my name with a Q, Qibili.
All
Yeah.
right. So, guys, this was Chibli, right? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and remember to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Also, if you yourself have a story to share, please send us an email at info@blackxjp.com. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.